بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, today we discuss Qa'idatul Yad, the rule of hand. This rule is very common in books on fiqh. You find many times ulama refer to this, and it is a way to establish ownership. It's a sign for milkiyah, for ownership. It has been said that this is one of the self-evident teachings of Islamic Sharia, very commonly accepted and practiced. Yad in Arabic means hand. Qa'idatu al-yad. But it is not necessarily something that you hold, with your hand. It is more general than that. Anything that is under your control, in Arabic we say istila, anything you have dominance and control over it, it can be considered as your property if someone wants to question your ownership. For example, I have a book with me, I have my laptop, I have my car, I live in a home, I have a farm, I am using them, they are under my control, and then someone comes and says, no, this is mine. I am just parking my car and someone brings police and says, this is my car. So, what should we do? Should we ask both people to show documents and certificates? Someone brings police to your door and says, this is my home. Should police ask both of you for documents? Say no. The one who is using, who has control, whose hand is there, we don't ask him for documents. Because al-yad amaratun alal milkiyah, this is a sign, evidence for ownership, unless someone can prove it to be wrong. If someone says that your car, that the car that you are driving is mine, and he can prove it, okay, we take the car and give it to that person. But we don't ask the one who is using the car to prove it. Is it clear? Al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i. The one who claims has to prove. But the one who is using it, we respect it. So, as you see, it's not always something that you hold with your hand. It can be the car that you drive, it can be a camel that you ride, it can be a home that you use, it can be a shop that you sell your products there, or it can be a home that you have the key. Maybe you are not using that home, but you have the key and you are the one who has access to it. So this is considered as an evidence for your ownership, unless it is proved that it doesn't belong to you. What is the reason for this rule? We have ahadith, but also we have bina'ul uqala. We mentioned few hadith. One hadith is رواية حفص بن غياث عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام قال له رجل إذا رأيت شيئا في يدي رجل يجوز لي أن أشهد أنه له. If I see someone has something in his hand, for example, I see a person sitting next to me on the bus has a laptop in his hand. He's using that. Or someone in the market has something and it's selling. Can I offer my testimony, bear witness that this belongs to him based on him having hand over it? Imam alayhi salam said, are you able to buy this from him? He said, yes, I can buy. Then Imam said, when you buy from him, can you say that this is mine? He said, yes. So then, when it is in his hand, you can say also this is his. If it was not his, then how can you buy it and then you say it's mine? So we respect his control and recognize it as a sign of ownership, and then based on that you can buy from him, you can also bear witness. Then Imam alayhi salam said something very important. He said, لو لم يجوز هذا لم يقم للمسلمين سوق. If we were not able to recognize ownership based on yad, we were not able to testify that, there would be no chance for Muslims to have market. There could be no market. Because imagine if in the market, whatever people want to sell, we ask them for proof. He wants to sell, biscuits. For every biscuit, we say, what's the proof? He wants to sell, meat. Say, what's the proof? And everyone, then would come and say, this is mine, and then we have to take them to the court and say, bring your, documents. There would be no chance of having market. There is another hadith which is actually about the story of Fadak. Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have different arguments about Fadak, because they try to argue on different levels. One is this. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam said to the first caliph, أَتَحْكُمُ فِينَا بِخِلَافِ حُكْمِ اللَّهِ فِي الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Do you judge among us different from the way you judge among Muslims? He said, no. Then Imam Ali said, فَإِنْ كَانَ فِي يَدِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ شَيْءٌ يَمْلُكُونَهُ. If Muslims have something that they own, and I claim that that is mine, ادعيت أنا فيه. So if there are Muslims who have something and I say that's mine, from whom you ask bayyana? Do you ask me bayyana or do you ask them for bayyana? He said, I would ask you for bayyana, because they have that under their control and you are claiming, so you have to bring bayyana. Then Amir al-Mu'minin said, then why, when we have had fadak in the time of Rasulullah when he was alive. We had fadak when we were using fadak, and now you ask us to bring bayyana. You want to take it away from us, you have to bring bayyana. فإذا كان في يدي شيء فادعى فيه المسلمون تسألون البينة على ما في يدي وقد ملكته في حياة رسول الله وبعده. In the time of the Prophet and even after the Prophet till now, we were using that, we had control over it. So why now you ask us for bayyana? You should ask anyone who disputes to bring bayyana. So this hadith also shows that yad is a sign of ownership. Another hadith is Sahihatul Isa ibn al-Qasim and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. He asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam about a slave who says, I am now free. He says, I am free, and you see he's free, he's traveling on his own, he's living on his own. What should we do? Imam alayhi salam said, you accept him as free. Because there is no one who is controlling him. He is free, he's traveling and living on his own. So this is the sign that he has control over himself. So you don't need to question him and ask him for documents. We have a hadith from Imam Raza alayhi salam, and he said that if it was to me to judge among people, I would have recognized ownership of people with respect to what they have under their control. So we have these hadiths, but we have also bina'ul uqala. It is something that not only Muslims, not only Christians, not only believers in God, all people who are rational, in any country that you travel, they have this practice that if someone is living in a house, if someone is driving a car, someone is carrying something, they don't ask them for proof. If someone else disputes and says what you are using or the home that you are living in is mine, they ask the other person for proof. So this is bina'ul uqala, and our Sharia has not banned and questioned this. Our Sharia has accepted this, and these hadiths are indeed signs of endorsement. Because if bina'ul uqala is problematic and Shari' says, I have question, for example, maybe uqala do some kind of riba sometimes. They say it's okay. Sharia can come and say, I don't accept this. This is not okay. Some people said, bay is like riba. But we say no. Bay is not riba. But if there is something that uqala do and Shari' does not question, does not criticize. Indeed, we have hadith that says the same thing. So that bina uqala, that practice of uqala, that habit of uqala becomes hujjah for us. Because there is endorsement or approval of Sharia. And also, if we didn't believe in this, we could have no market, as Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said. It's impossible to have market without this. Indeed, not only we would have problem with market, we could not have even a religious life. We could not go to the mosque, we could not, buy, anything. We could not, make wuzu or whatever, because all the time we have to be just showing certificates and, going to the court. We could not have, normal life. Life becomes impossible without qa'idatul yad. Now, there is a technical question here. If I see someone is living in a home, for example, you go to Najaf, Karbala, someone has a home and is renting for Zovar, for example. You don't know what is the previous condition. You just right now see him having control over home. Certainly, you can accept practically that he is the owner and he has the permission and he has the authority. So you can go to that home, say your prayer, stay there, no problem. When you don't know the previous condition. Or you know that he was Malik, he was the owner, and you don't know whether it has changed or not. Again, you assume he is the same. But if you know that previously he was not owner, for example, you know that last year he was qasib, he had gone to someone's home without permission. Now this year he says, I am owner. So here you cannot accept this. Or for example, he was a tenant, now he says, I am the owner. Then here there's a question. So if we don't know the previous condition, then certainly we can assume that he's the owner. If we know the previous condition and we know that according to previous condition he was not owner, then we need to verify. And if you know the previous condition and you know that he was owner, then you assume he is owner, but then this is not qa'idatul yad, this is istishab. Istishab is to bring the previous condition which is known for certain to the present condition. Like you had wuzu at 10 o'clock, now it's 12 o'clock, you don't know whether you slept or not, you do istishab. You assume that your wuzu is continuing. Okay, this is different from qa'idatul yad. Qa'idatul yad is when there is no way to establish except looking at the present. Another question. Is this qa'idatul yad something that we can use also for ourselves, apply to ourselves? You know, if I go to your car and I find some money in your car, I can say this is your money. I find a mobile in your car, I can say this is your mobile. What if I find something in my own home, car, under my yad? Can I say this is mine or not? For example, I find a pen in my bag. I don't know it's mine or someone else. Can I say it's mine because I have control over it? The answer is yes. Unless you are in a condition that other people also use your car. For example, you're a taxi driver and lots of people come and go. Here then there is no yad. Okay? Or there is a hadith that you have a box, sanduq. In your box you find something. Imam says, is anyone else using this box or not? If it's only you using this box, so whatever is there, you can assume it's yours. But if it's a box that many people put things inside and take it, then you cannot say it is mine. So there is a hadith Sahih Jamil ibn Salih from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Rajulun wajada fi baytihi dinaran. A person found in his home a golden coin. Imam alayhi salam said, Dakhala manzilahu ghayruh. Did anyone else go inside his home? قلت نعم كثير. Many people go. For example, a person who has rose or majlis in his home. Many people go in his home. Then Imam said, هذه لقطة. So this is like finding on the street. You have to look for the owner. Okay? قلت رجل وجد في صندوقه دينارا. Someone finds in his safe or in his box dinar. Imam said, فيدخل أحد في صندوقه غيره أو يضع فيه شيء. Is anyone else using that safe, that box, other than him and putting things inside or not? قلت لا. I said, no, it's only him. Then Imam said, then it's him, his money. So as you see, yad is very rational, logical. It's not just enough that you have a box or it's your home. It is your home, but many other people are using that home. It's a box that other people are using. Or it's car, but you are a taxi driver, many passengers go to your car. Then this is not working. We can use this also for clarifying the case with the thieves. If someone is a thief, then even if something is in his home and he is not, for example, visited by other people, he cannot say, inshallah, this is the one which was mine, because he had some halal and some haram. No. Because you have lots of property from other people, so you cannot say it is mine. Or sometimes there are people who keep amanat of people. Okay, for example, there is an alim that collects khums and sadaqat and wujuhat of people in his home. He keeps them and then he uses them according to the instructions or giving to the marja. So this person cannot find, if he finds a money, a note in his home and has doubt, says it is mine, because he keeps lots of money that is not his. Qa'idatul yad cannot be applied here. Okay? So the summary is this. In our Sharia, one of the ways to practically establish, you cannot say wallahi this is his milk, but practically you can assume that this is property of someone, is to see whether he has control over it. Is it under his care, under his dominance or not? We say yad as example. It doesn't need always be yad. Maybe it's glasses on your eyes. I have glasses on my eyes, someone said it's mine. Says I have yad over this, but this is not physical yad. It can be car, it can be home, it can be farm. We consider this as sign of milkiyah. We can buy from that person. Judge can rule according to this. In the past, they didn't have, documents and certificates. You lived in this house, and then if you sell it, you go out, and that person comes in. There is not that much necessarily certificate. So we assume that this person has ownership, unless it is proved otherwise. Someone can question and prove that this is mine. We said that there are hadiths, especially the hadith that we have from Imam Sadiq al-Salam, that if you don't recognize this, there would be no market for Muslims. We said in addition to hadith, we have bina'ul uqala. This is a practice of rational people, and there has been no rejection in the Sharia. Plus, not only we don't have rejection, we have approval in hadith. Then we said this applies when we don't know the previous condition. If the previous condition is known to be against this, then we have to question milkiyah. For example, he was qasib or tenant, now he says it's mine. Or if we know that previously he was owner, then we don't need qa'idatul yad, we would do istishab. And finally, we said you can use it also for yourself. If in your home, in something which is under your control, you find something and you don't know it's yours or not, you can assume it's yours, unless that place is a place that other people also use. Then you cannot assume that it is yours. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam rahmatullah.
Sorry, just wanted to pass a scenario by you for application of this particular rule. This country, sometimes I'm walking on the road and suddenly somebody comes up to me and said, do you want a Rado watch? Right, now the Rado watch normally costs 500 pounds. He's selling it for 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the back of my mind, I know this is, what do they call it? Off the lorry, yeah? Of the back of the lorry. He's either a delivery person and he's just siphoning some of the stock, selling it and making cash money. That's assumption. I mean, that's the explanation for selling something so expensive, so cheap.
Yeah.
But according to what we've just discussed, he is sahibul yad, because it's in his car, he opens the car, he shows me, and he says, I'm selling this for 50 pounds. To what extent do I have to be certain that it is not his? Do I have to ask for some kind of evidence, or can I assume that he is the owner and therefore buy it from him?
Yeah, very good question. Normally we don't question, but sometimes there are signs that raise doubt. For example, you see that it is sold in a very cheap price that you can never find in any shop or any place. And this is also a person who is not stationed, so you don't find him next day here. So when lots of doubt surrounds this, then it would be problematic. It's better to be avoided. Of course, we should check with Marja, but it's a great chance that Marja would say, if you have doubt, in this case, a strong doubt, ihtiyat is that you don't buy from him. But if the difference is not that much, and especially if the person has a shop, a person, you see him every day, then you say this is not a thief, or
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I had a question, like, for instance, I find something in my house which I am sure that it's not mine. It's not as if I'm not sure or unsure, but I'm very sure it's not mine, but I do not know whom does it belong to. Maybe a guest, or maybe my child brought it from somewhere, or I don't know, and I find it like maybe I see like someone was there at my place maybe 2 months ago, a month ago, a week ago. I don't know whose exactly it is. So what's the ruling with that? An extension of this question is, if my child brings something home and she doesn't remember who does it belong to, what should I do for that particular thing?
If there is something in your home and you know it's not yours, if it belongs to a particular person, you give it to that person. If it belongs to a person that you don't know particularly, but it's one of few people. For example, the child has brought from his class. So it's a matter of 15, 20 people. We know that it's not outside that class, so we have to give them. Okay? But if you totally don't know, then it becomes like something that you find on the street. It's luqata. So if amount is more than certain amount, and you are totally hopeless, then you give sadaqah on behalf of that person, or you ask Wakil of Marja for permission. So you consider it as luqata if you don't know at all.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu
I don't know the exact ayat of the Quran, and this might be a more aqaid question, but there's an ayah that talks about what your right hand possesses in reference to slaves.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether you can give me your view on whether that ayah you think is still applicable in this day and age, and to what extent that might be the case.
Yeah, that's an issue of slavery. So Islam, first of all, restricted the ways someone may become a slave. So, because in the past, sometimes they used to attack people and then enslave them, things like this. And then encourage people to free slaves. Okay? So soon it stopped. Today, there is no way to have a slave unless, according to some fuqaha, there is jihad, and then if there is kafir harbi, then if they are taken as captive, might be taken as a slave, but not every faqih accepts that. But in normal situation, there is no way to anyone enslave anyone.
So I had a question which was similar to the previous question,
Yeah.
but I was just thinking regarding, if there is a possession in your house and you just say it's not mine, would the claimant come forward and you advertise, for example, in the paper,
Yeah.
but no one has come forward, and there may be a time limit, you may set a time limit of 3 months, after which it can go into auction. So that's one part. The other question I've got is, if you're a taxi driver, for example, and you see a wallet with a lot of money there, and you cannot identify, so do you return it to the authorities, or what is the issue of that?
So you have to look for the owner by advertising, by giving to authority, whatever, till you become hopeless. If you have become despaired from finding, then that can be spent, but it depends on the amount. If it is less than certain amount, it's different. If it's more than that amount, you have to give on behalf of that person, like sadaqah. And if you trust those authorities that they will, keep it safe and look for the owner, or when the owner goes, but then after, if the owner doesn't come, what are they going to do with that? Are they going to observe Sharia rule or not? Then there are certain issues here.
So what happens in that case, when you doubt what the person you're returning to
Yeah.
will exercise?
Then if you are allowed and doesn't, make a big problem, then you have to yourself make sure that you give it for sadaqah to the wakil. If not, then get permission. They say, I have to do, otherwise they sack me from this job, or something like this,
You cannot use it for yourself.
No, unless it is very little. The best thing is if you find on the street, you don't touch it, because then you become responsible. But if it is in your car, then you cannot avoid it because it's in your car, But if it's on the street, it's better not to touch it.
Sheikh, with your permission, can we open the Q&A to any subject?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sheikh, just an extension of the slavery question.
Yes.
I have a very good friend of mine who actually, anytime I need any advice when it comes to business or etc., he's somebody I would always go and tap into. He used to be a very devout Muslim, and one of the things he mentioned to me in one of our conversations about why he left the path of becoming a Muslim or being a Muslim, a practicing Muslim, was the issue of slavery. Slavery in terms of, you mentioned how Islam restricted slavery in general. If you can just touch on that. And also there's another point he mentioned, which I had no knowledge to respond to either, was the relationship of the Prophet towards slaves as well. If you can touch on that, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a topic that, alhamdulillah, we have also some essays and materials on it. First of all, this is not something that Islam started. This is something that existed before from, many generations. This was there. But it was not always as negative as we think about it. Because the idea was that when, for example, there was a war and they had captive, they didn't have prisons or camps. They had either to kill them or they had to bring them to their own home and live with them like family members. Some people maybe treated them very nice, some people maybe mistreated them, but this can happen even to family members. Some people treat their wife or children well, or some people don't do this. But that was something that was common because they had no other option. If they wanted to kill people, that was even worse. Islam said every human being is free. No one has a right to enslave other people. But there were people who were already slaves. So it couldn't all of a sudden, without having any authority, any government, from the first day that Rasulullah ﷺ say all the slaves are free, then they would try to use this as a means to attack Islam and destroy Muslims more. So what Islam did, even many of Islamic rulings didn't come all at once. Many rulings were introduced in Medina, little by little, even not first year in Medina. So what Islam did, first made sure that there would be no new slaves. No one can enslave people. Secondly, made lots of legal arrangements for becoming free. For example, if someone is owning a slave and then has a child from that slave, that child is freed. Then when the owner dies, the child becomes the owner, then automatically the mother is free. There are lots of kafarat that they had to free slaves. Lots of recommendation to free slaves. So little by little, this stopped much earlier than even in the Western world. Slavery stopped there much earlier than Western world. But when it comes to way Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt treated slaves, they had best practice. They used to take some of these people, look after them, educate them, and free them. And many times they gave them farm, they gave them something, they can live on their own. But we have stories that they didn't want to live. They said, we want to stay. This was maximum respect that they were receiving.
Some stories about the Prophet or being doubted in some respect, which I don't have any credibility, but the Prophet having offspring with slaves.
So you could marry, like you can marry a free person, you could marry also, but there are conditions. But because we could not say they shouldn't be married, because they had also right to be married, to have children. But you have to always remember conditions, circumstances. Once I used this example, I said, for example, if 50 years ago for example, took from here my family with a very, a slow and not comfortable car for ziyarah 50 years ago. It's a mashallah. Because other people had to go by horse, for example, or walking. But he has taken with the car. But now, if with the same car I take my family, they say you are, torturing them. They have to be, uncomfortable on these seats. Now you have to take them with the plane. So things can change. Something that in one time can be very normal, in another time can look not normal. If the dress that, for example, 2 generations ago they gave to their children, we give now to the children, maybe everyone looks at them, in a very bad way. It doesn't mean that those people did zulm. They didn't do zulm, because at that time that was the expectation. Now expectation has gone higher. Our problem is that we compare these 2 times together without considering the differences in expectations, in culture, in customs. Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikh, this is to do with the first lecture, if you don't mind. You were saying that the definition of a companion is slightly different in Sunni and Shia Islam. What's our belief about Uwais al-Qarni? Is he considered a companion? If it's true about how he didn't actually meet.
He is not technically a companion, because he didn't meet Rasulullah. But maybe spiritually he is connected, but not technically, because he didn't have any meeting. He went to Medina, Rasulullah was not there, and then he had to return.
Any more burning questions? If not, we can close inshallah early for today. Sheikh, thank you very much. Let's finish with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Awesome.